Welcome back to 996 The Howl. Hockey's postponed. They had Coyotes had their Sunday game against Vancouver postponed, Seattle game Tuesday night postponed, Thursday game against Tampa postponed, and those games will be made up during the Olympic break where the NHL isn't going anymore. So those videos I had planned for the Olympic break are now going to pepper through, the end of December and January, see what happens. Coyotes, their next game is a back-to-back, Monday the 27th and Tuesday the 28th, against, former divisional rivals LA Kings and San Jose Sharks. So before, we get back to the current Coyotes, let's look at prior Coyotes. These players are part of the exodus, the great Bill Armstrong Thanos snap of the summer of 2021. Let's see how they're doing, see where they're at. Are they doing well? Are they doing worse? Both are true. So let's get into it. Probably the best former Coyotes player having a great season, a substantially good season. There's a couple others that are doing pretty well too. Connor Garland traded to Vancouver, a necessary casualty in that, trade to get rid of Oliver Ekman-Larsson's bloated and one of the worst contracts in the league. To make that more digestible and appetizing, Coyotes had to tag along Garland on that trade. Garland signed, a 5x5, if you want to be technical, 4.95 by 5-year contract with the Canucks. He's playing about a minute less with the Canucks than the Coyotes, playing on the third line with Peterson and Podkolzin. That's a great third line. The Canucks struggled mightily in the beginning of the season up until about 2-3 weeks ago, where they had a coaching change, brought in Bruce Boudreau, and now they're on a 6-game winning streak at the pause. Something I would have liked the Coyotes to pursue before they went to scorched earth was try a new coach, because Coyotes did have some good young talent, and I would have liked to see how they performed under a offensively minded coach and a different style coach than Rick Tocchet. But obviously Bill Armstrong saw that the players they currently had would not bring the Coyotes deep into the playoffs, and so they had to restart. So Canucks, they're doing way better than they were with Travis Green. Although at that time the Canucks fans were talking about trades and how this player's not performing well and they should trade this guy. But now that with a new coach, they think they're an amazing team. So we'll see how it evens out when they come back down to earth. What players are the odd man out there. But okay, let's stick to Connor Garland. He's playing at about the same points per game per 60. Sorry, his points per 60 minutes are the same because he's playing 1 minute less with Vancouver. But if you look at points per game, it was a little bit higher with the Coyotes. But he's maintaining that 20 goal per season pace. I think he's only going to get better from here. Probably not going to be a consistent over 25 or 30 goal guy, but a nice supplementary, depth forward on that second or third line that could pot in 60. He's flashy. His antics are out of this world. And even in his short time with Vancouver, his antics are circling around the hockey league, and it's great to see Garland having fun. And that's a sad one to see him go, but it's nice to see that he's still performing well. He hasn't taken a dip in his performance, so he stayed consistent. And maybe under Bruce Boudreau, he eclipses his career numbers with the Coyotes. Moving on to another good success story is Michael Bunting, who left on his own volition from the Coyotes in free agency. He's got 7 goals, 12 assists, 19 points in 30 games. He had 10 goals in 21 games with the Coyotes. Obviously, unsustainable, astronomical numbers there. He's not going to be a 40-goal scorer. The Leafs are dealing with their injuries. Marner's out, a couple other guys in and out of the lineup. Sometimes Bunting is on the first line. Most of the time he's on the third line, maybe fourth line. Don't watch the Leafs too much, but good to see Bunting having a respectable season, great value. He's signed for under $1 million for 2 years. He's playing in his hometown, playing somewhere where he wanted to go. So it's good to see that. His points per game is about the same with the Coyotes. He only had 3 assists with the Coyotes in 21 games, so he's getting more assists, playing with better teammates, obviously. than the Coyotes. So great to see Bunting succeeding in Toronto. Moving to Dvorak, where okay, it's now these players are going to start to have a downward trajectory. Dvorak, 5 goals, 7 assists, 12 points in 27 games played. A lot of people don't remember this, but he was traded for a first and a second round pick. However, that second round pick is in 2024, so that's about a ways away, 2 years from now, 2.5 years from now, until that draft. So not only did we trade a first for Dvorak, we got a second round pick too. And unfortunately, that first round pick isn't going to be Montreal's first round pick. It's top 10 protected. Montreal's going to finish neck and neck with the Coyotes in the basement. One of the worst disappointing seasons in the league. At least the Coyotes were planning to be this bad, but for a former Cup finalist to go down this bad, it is one of the worst stories in the NHL. So because they're going to finish in the top 10, most likely in the draft order, that pick is going to defer to the Carolina Hurricanes first round pick, which is looking like a high 20s pick, maybe mid 20s. We'll see how far they can get in the playoffs, but they're pretty much a lock for the playoffs. We'll see how they fare against the Metro Division, and if they can get out of that division, they're looking like a conference finals team. So keep an eye on Carolina. Maybe if they go on a downward trend, that's good for Coyotes. But it's looking like they're a lock for the playoffs, and it'll be a mid to high 20s first round draft pick. But then we also get a good second round pick 2.5 years from now because of this trade. Dvorak's still a young guy. You don't like to see a young player already have a downward trend. He just got injured. He's out indefinitely. He got injured about a week or two ago before the pause. His numbers are down. The Canadians want him to be at least a 20-goal scorer. You don't give a first round pick for under 20 goals and a first and a second round pick. So he's already played about half the games he's played last season. Last season he had 17 goals, 14 assists, 31 points. So his assists is on par, but he should already be around the 8 or 9 goal mark around halfway through the season compared to last year's totals. And his 12-point total should be about 17, 18 points by now already. But he's going to be out injured. So looking like a wash of a season. And then next year we'll see what the Montreal Canadiens do. Moving on to Tyler Pitlick, one of the worst reversals in career numbers and performance. He was picked up by the Seattle Kraken in the expansion draft and then traded to Calgary. He's got 2 points in 21 games played. He had 11 points, 6 goals in 38 games played last season with the Coyotes. So he was really good for the Coyotes. This is his last year of his contract that the Coyotes signed. It was about $1.75 million. So I wouldn't be surprised, and I would encourage Bill Armstrong to circle back on Pitlick, pick him up even cheaper, considering he's having an abysmal season with the Flames. Even though the Flames are having a good season, he's a healthy scratch, only playing 21 games. Calgary's played about 28, 29, 30 games. And so, I guess the Calgary Flames have no use for him. He's averaging 5 minutes less per game than with the Coyotes. So the Coyotes obviously valued Pitlick more. He was on the PK. He was playing about top 6, third line minutes. He was fast, great physical player, one of those Bill Armstrong type big players. That's why Bill Armstrong went out and got him in his first offseason as the GM of the Coyotes. So would not be surprised to see Pitlick back in the desert. I liked him. He's having a terrible season in Calgary, so pick him up for cheap. A lot of fans liked him. The Discord, the Reddits, people liked him. He's a good player. 6 goals in 38 games last season. A good depth third or fourth line guy. Obviously not a top 6 player. His career is in jeopardy if he doesn't, have a bounce back next season. But he's playing on a good team, and he's being healthy scratched, and he's not performing well. So maybe he needs another resurgence in his career, and Arizona would be a good place for that. Broussard, on the other hand, is having a resurgence and resurrection of his career since moving on from the Arizona Coyotes. Last season, I felt he didn't really push the needle. He ghosted a lot, consistently ghosted. The only memories I have of Broussard on the Coyotes were just skating on the rush, down the wing on the boards, and just slapping it past the tender. I believe he did that twice. Good slap shot. He tends to love playing in metropolitan division teams. You know, he was on Pittsburgh, the Rangers, the Islanders, and now he's on Philadelphia. 11 points in 18 games. Not too shabby. Philadelphia's, in a bit of a rut. They also had a coaching change recently. So we'll see if they could push for a playoff spot or maybe sell him at the deadline. He's producing pretty well. They could get a good draft pick for him. Moving on to Lane Peterson, who he was traded for a fourth round pick to the San Jose Sharks. 1 point in 17 games. I think he's just a fringe NHLer now. He plays on the fourth line for the Sharks. Not really improving, taking the next step, unlocking any gear to move up in the lineup. It was a good trade by Bill Armstrong. At the time, I was sour that we got rid of him, but it was amongst all the other trades and amongst the exodus of players where, could have kept Peterson, but for fourth round pick for this production, it's pretty good. He's averaging the same amount of ice time as with the Coyotes, with the Sharks. So he's just not putting it together. He had 1 goal, 2 assists in about 15 games last year with the Coyotes. So that's the type of player he is. I don't think he's going to be any better than what's happening with him right now. Moving on to the defenseman, OEL, $7.2 million cap hit for Vancouver. Coyotes are paying $1 million on top of that for the remainder of OEL's contract. His point production is severely low for getting that much money, but around the hockey forums, all the Vancouver fans say he's a good defenseman. He's playing well defensively. 5-on-5, he's one of the league's best in defending. But you don't pay $7 million for that for a long time, too. It's great that, his plus-minus is hovering around 2. Last season, it was -17 on the Coyotes. He's playing about a minute and a half more on the Canucks than the Coyotes last year. Last year, the Coyotes were moving on from OEL and playing Chikrin and Goligoski as their top pairing, and OEL was more of a second pairing guy. Didn't use him as much as those two aforementioned players. But 2 goals. Last season, he had 3 for the Coyotes in about 56 games. But his assist numbers are way down. He had 21 assists last season for the Coyotes. It was actually 46 games played. So his assist numbers are way low. Considering he's playing on a team with much more talent and much better forwards than the Coyotes last year, it's weird how his assists are low. Maybe you can make the assumption that, his puck moving skills and moving the puck up the ice isn't good enough anymore, or that he's good at moving the puck north, but the Vancouver Canucks have so many talented and skilled forwards that once they retrieve it from their D-men, they're making their own plays, and so he's not really getting those secondary or primary assists anymore because he's on such a talented group. But that's a weak argument. That's the only devil's advocate I could say without compared to saying he's just playing up poor point numbers, and he's got to rectify that. He's got to put up the points. He's an offensive D-man first and foremost. I know he's transitioning into a later part of his career, but you don't acquire him with that bloated contract for just, average or above average defending. That's my point. And a great example is Goligoski, who's thriving in Minnesota. He's playing 3.5 minutes less on the Wild than the Coyotes. The Coyotes ran him like a horse. He's having a resurgence, just like Derek Brassard. He's reaching his career consistency of mid to high 30 points per year, almost going to get 40 points per year. That's where he's been consistently throughout his career. Last season with the Coyotes, he didn't really put it together. He had 22 points in 56 games played. So, look at those assist numbers too. He's just thriving in Minnesota. Great to see. He's still got some fuel left in his tank. And, just because he's playing third pairing minutes or what have you, he's not even playing high power play minutes OELs on PP2 for Vancouver, but his assist numbers are great, and they are where OEL's assist numbers should be. Moving on to Jordan Osterley. Yeah, he went to the Red Wings. Didn't really make a splash in the news. I forgot that he went to Detroit. 2 assists in 16 games played. His time on ice is about the same compared with the Coyotes. I liked him. Talkett didn't really like him. He benched him a lot last season after the team lost embarrassingly to the Vegas Golden Knights one game, and then just never played Osterley almost for the rest of the season. So sad to see his career hasn't gone into an uptick and improved, and he hasn't taken that next step. So you're looking at a fringe third pairing defenseman there. Moving on to the goaltending, Darcy Kemper. I mean, his team numbers are great. 13 wins, 5 losses. Those aren't goals and assists. But his individual numbers are poor. 907, 277 for Kemper. Last season, he was pedestrian. He was so human last season. I think the Avalanche broke him in the playoffs that year in the bubble. He never since those games, he hasn't been Darcy Kemper ever again. If you look at the 2 seasons prior to the season last year, he had a 928 and a 925, a 222 and a 233 goals against average. So like 920s are like elite goaltenders just starting there. Elite goaltenders this season are like 930. So he's well below that for a starter. His goals against average is a bit too high, higher than last season for the Coyotes. He was injured for about 2 weeks with an upper body injury. Thankfully, it wasn't his groin or his knee, which he's had issues with the Coyotes numerous seasons in a row. But yeah, he's not at his best just yet. I know the Avalanche haven't even kicked it into gear yet. They're still in a wild card position, aiming for that third spot in the Pacific. But they're not playing their best hockey. They've been injured. A lot of good players have been injured, and they've been missing a lot of players. They just need to. They haven't hit their stride yet. And so I'm waiting for Kemper to finally show that, Vezina candidate Kemper from 2019. But it still hasn't happened. It's a bit surprising, but to be honest, I think he has shell shock from that playoff series. Moving on to Auntie Ronta, who's a backup goaltender in Carolina. He has the same save percentage as Kemper, but he's a backup, so that's respectable save percentage numbers. And his goals against average is better than Kemper's. His goals against average last season for the Coyotes was 3.33, so he's allowing almost a goal per game less. On the Hurricanes, he hasn't been injured too much. He just suffered a concussion and missed about a week or two. But the Hurricanes aren't playing him too much. He's only played 7 games compared to Freddie Anderson, who they're riding hard. So maybe, halfway through the season, in the latter half of the season, we'll see more Auntie Ronta. He'll get way more starting games and rest Freddie for the playoffs. If you're a Coyotes fan, you just want Ronta and Anderson to, maybe get diarrhea every game, and they would have to play their third string, and that will lower their draft pick. But yeah, I think the Hurricanes are going to make the playoffs and make a good run. Good to see Ronta's numbers a bit better. It's still not amazing from what we've seen of Auntie Ronta, but it is what it is. At least he's healthy, and he's got to play consistent hockey. That's where his mind should be at. It shouldn't be at putting up 920 numbers or 930 numbers. Just play consistent hockey, win some games, and don't get injured. And finally, Aiden Hill. Disappointing for me to see a young goaltender, working so much to be an NHL backup and an NHL starter, and he had so many glimpses with the Coyotes that he was making good progress. The last 2 seasons with the Coyotes, he was 913 and 918 with a 2.7 and a 2.6 goals against. But with the Sharks as an official NHL backup, he's 6 wins, 9 losses. He's got a 900 save percentage and a 2.9 goals against average. Reimer is just doing so much better and carrying the Sharks. They had a great start to the season, but they're coming back down to earth. The Sharks are. But Aiden Hill, he's been a huge disappointment for the Sharks. I mean, those numbers need to be much better for a backup. And for a young goaltender trying to make a stamp as an NHL consistent goalie, to see him go down from the Coyotes to the Sharks, you don't like to see that. It would be better if his numbers were at least on par with last season. I mean, the Coyotes weren't really good defensively last season, but somehow Hill put up way better numbers than these last season. Maybe we see Hill on that, Monday or Tuesday game, the back to back, whichever it is, the Monday or the Tuesday, when the Coyotes face the Sharks for the first time this season. Maybe we'll see Aiden Hill. Maybe some, flashbacks of some good memories for Hill. But it's been disappointing for Hill. Hopefully he gets it back on track. I don't think so. Um, Maybe he needs to play on a better team than the Sharks, who are trending downwards from such a great start to this season. So that's it for me. Those are the former Yotes. That's how they're doing. The great exodus of summer 2021. I didn't go too far in the past with like Duclair, Domi, Hinestroza. That's a bit too far. Let's stick with, the meme of the Thanos snap of Bill Armstrong and see how they progress. It looks like Garland, Bunting, and Broussard, Goligoski are having great years. OEL maybe, depending if you're a Vancouver fan or not. It doesn't look like he's playing up to his contract, and that contract will most likely bite them in the behind sooner or later, as soon as next year. Maybe it's biting them in the behind right now. Dvorak's having a disappointing year. Pitlick's disappointing. Hill disappointing. Kemper's got to step it up. Looking for Bill Armstrong to circle back on Pitlick. Would love him back on the Coyotes. Really liked his play on the Coyotes. Not sure why he's not thriving on such a good Calgary team, but Calgary's got Brad Richardson, former Coyote, and Trevor Lewis on that fourth line. So maybe they're just playing better than Pitlick, and Pitlick really can't get it going up north. So that's it for me. Thank you for watching. If you like what you see, spread the word. And as always, thank you for your support.